Hi everyone, I'm Karen Robertson with Adventures in Wisdom, and today I am thrilled to be speaking with Inna Neal. Inna is one of our senior life coaches at Adventures in Wisdom. She's based in New Zealand and she's been a wisdom coach since 2015. Her goal is to empower kids, families, and individuals to live life from a positive perspective and to be confident self-leaders in their own lives. I think you're going to be really inspired by Inna's personal story and the impact she's having in the world. Welcome, Inna. I'm thrilled to be talking to you today.
Thank you. Thank you for that. That's lovely. I'm really happy to be here as well.
I thought we might open up and I'd ask you how it is that you got into life coaching for kids and how did you find Adventures in Wisdom?
Oh, that was such a beautiful experience, actually. Um, so I guess I can just very quickly go back to about 7 years ago when I was having my own challenges in my life. I have four kids, ranging from high school to as young as toddler, and I myself was really struggling. I had, both actually physically had some physical things going on with me, but mostly I was just struggling emotionally. I found that life was way too hard, but I just needed to be here because my kids needed me. And so I was studying for a mental health diploma during that time here in New Zealand. And I recognized that there wasn't a lot of solutions there for people like me. So I began to dive in alternatively into learning how to become the leader of my own life, how to realize that my thoughts and my feelings and emotions, they matter and they create the way that I view the world. And as I began to do this work on myself, I recognized that I was impacting my children. I was impacting my husband. I was impacting the people in my life by just learning how to love myself, how to be who I am, and how to have dreams and be okay with that. And I remember about a year into this development, I thought to myself, how do I teach this to children? And I began, looking online, and I just couldn't find anything. But one thing that I do remember that was very powerful for me is that when I was impacting others during that year within my own, I wasn't a coach or anything like that. I realized that people were resonating with my stories of certain things that I reflected on and certain experiences, and they would light up when I would share a story. And so when I had the question of how do I teach this to kids, I went online. I couldn't really find anything at all. And it was pretty much within those couple of days that I had that question come up for me was when Adventures in Wisdom, I saw an ad on Facebook. And I looked into the details of it. And it was really interesting because I had just graduated from my mental health diploma and I was starting up a new diploma in specifically child psychology, which I do have a background when I was younger, but I was revisiting it. So I was already signed up and I saw the Adventures in Wisdom program. I looked at it and I saw that every single thing that I was learning within here and learning how to impact was all in there. I mean, everything. And I loved that it was based on stories because I recognized that I myself am a storyteller. So I tell stories around my real life. And this was such a powerful way to share. I knew right away. I called the university. I had, I think, 2 days before I can get full refund on this new diploma that I was doing. And I put it toward Adventures in Wisdom. And I never looked back. It's been amazing.
Oh, I'm so inspired by your story. That is just beautiful. So tell me, when you first got the curriculum and you started engaging with it, what were you looking to help your own children? Were you looking to be a coach? Like what were your thoughts when you first started with Adventures in
Yeah. 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 Yes, looking to support my children, that was a given for me, but it was really, I wanted to coach children. I found that my biggest challenge was, why aren't they teaching this in schools? Why didn't I learn this as a child?
Mm,
And
yes.
it's you know, it's okay. I love that I had my journey because I don't think I'd be here. So there's no regret from that. But I thought I have the power now to be able to teach it to 6 and 7 and 8 year olds and show them that they are such powerful beings.
Yes, they are, and beautiful. I was a Cub Scout leader for about 5 years, and the ages for Cub Scouts are between 8 and 10. And I remember I've said many times that I loved that age because I was working with kids before they got lifed, if you will.
Mm,
I would call it getting lifed. And, you know, these I too wish I would have learned these skills or had them, because I really struggled, and Renee talks about this in her story, and I guess with our upbringing it's not surprising since we grew up together, you know, yo-yo self-esteem, and how, you know, a lot of my self-esteem came from outside of me, my accomplishments or whatnot. And therefore, I had this persona of like the successful good girl, if you will. But the successful good girl is not necessarily an authentic woman or
mm.
child or person all the time. And, you know, if I would have been, and I feel like I had pretty good self-esteem, but a lot of it was external based.
We're
Yeah.
all taught that. We're taught that everything is, excuse me, external. But the reality is when we recognize that it's internal, then we
Yeah,
can do something about it. And that's what the curriculum teaches.
that's right. So tell me,
Mm.
when you first started out, what was your journey like coaching kids?
Mm.
And then what kinds of programs do you do, and how do you work with kids? I'd love to know more about what you're doing.
Mm. You know, it was really wonderful. When I first started to work as a coach, I started first with my friends' children. I said, come on, you know, so I would create little groups, including my own kids and their friends. And I just started to kind of just do that, just to feel what it looks like, just to see the impact that it's having. So that was my first step. Um, and then after I did that for about 6 months, and it just really came naturally because the curriculum is so easy to follow. And then I thought, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to get it out, right? I had this next best step. And that's, I guess, just sharing that for a moment is my journey has been always what is my next best step? Because sometimes as coaches, we look at the big picture, we think about our reason why we're doing it. We want to impact the world, we want to get it into schools, we want to teach all these children. But when we're looking at it from that big of a point of view, it becomes too hard and too scary. And I would go back and forth from that until I really started to dive into what is my next best step. And I remember having a thought, and that was go to the public library, see if you would offer them one of the skills. And I thought, okay, yeah, sounds great. Of course, the butterflies was there, the fear was there, the self-talk was there, but it just felt equally as right as what it felt like when I saw the Adventures in Wisdom ad, right? So just going along that kind of anchor. And I remember I decided that I wanted to do the course on self-confidence, and I didn't really have much except the you know, just myself really. And I remember standing outside of the library, and I had one foot in the door and one foot out the door. And, you know, the beautiful synchronicity in that, without realizing it, the skill that I wanted to teach is on self-confidence. And here I am living in one of the stories, Canville and Cantville, right? And my fear was like, run home, don't even think about it. And my you know, the desire walked me right into the library. And I asked for someone that does children's programs there, and I told her what I do. I'm a life coach, and I'd like to share, you know, a self-confidence skill. Would you like that? That was pretty much all I said. And she looked at me and she said, we have been waiting for someone like you. And I
Wow,
went,
that's amazing.
oh. So, you know, the evidence was there and we booked it. She called me a couple of days later after she advertised it. It was completely filled up because we only had a limiting space room. And she asked if I would do another one right after that. So I think it was at 11 to 12. And she goes, can we do another one exactly like that from 12 to 1? Because I've got kids on the waiting list. And
Wow.
we did. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And from that next step, I thought, okay, this is obviously needed. The community is saying we need this. And I reached out to a few venues and just started working on workshops and didn't stop since. And that was in 2016.
That's amazing. Yeah, I've read that you've done a lot of workshops. I saw that on your website. Tell me, when you did your first course on self-confidence, did you do one skill book with activities, or like what was that program about, or what did it involve?
Yeah, the one that I did, it was a one-off for the library where when I run my own workshops, I do a 6-skill workshop, whether it be in the school holidays. So it's more of an intensive within 1 week. We do 6 skills broken down in 3 different days. Or if it's during school term, it's 6 consecutive weeks. So if it's on a Tuesday, it's every Tuesday for 6 weeks. That particular skill was a one-off. It was a gift to me to be able to practice, and also a gift to the community, to share that particular skill and the possibilities of what else they can do. Yeah, so we covered all the senses as the curriculum does. So I created vision boards for each skill, little affirmations and little teachings and little pictures and just things that they can look at. And every kid is different in the way that they learn. So some kids love the boards and some kids don't even look at them, and that's totally okay. But then it covers also the auditory. So that's the story, where children don't feel like they're being lectured. One of the things that they have so much of is adults constantly telling them what they should do and what they shouldn't do and why they should or shouldn't do it. And the way that the curriculum is based, because of the stories, they're being able to just recognize that there's others, even though it's a fictional story, that there's others that experience that as well. And we talk about how they can relate that in their lives. So then that's the verbal bit. That's them being seen and heard and acknowledged. And then the kinesthetic, right? They kind of dive into the artwork. And so it covers so much.
Yes. Oh, that was a beautiful articulation of what is involved with and why it works as well.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me a little bit more about your purpose in the world. And I love that you're saying about your next step. And one of the things I was reading that you had written is about your work in school. So I just would love to know more about you, your purpose in the world, your next step, schools, just whatever inspires you in that space.
I guess, to put it very, very, very simply, my purpose in the world is to help people to connect to their inner being, their inner power, their selves, so that they can know who they truly are and live life from there. Because when we live life from there, then we can all live our purpose. We can all, whatever that looks like for us, because we're all so unique, and the way that we, can share. So that's really my purpose. Of course, speaking to what is my next best step, that has evolved with Adventures in Wisdom. So just to kind of share how it looked like and how it evolved, I had run these courses. I had all these kids come in the beginning. I was running 4 courses per term. That was a lot. That's how powerful it was. And what I found was children would come into the courses or to the workshops and say, okay, Inna, I get what you're saying, and I really resonate. Now, this is my language. They might have said, and I'm really getting it, and it makes sense to me. Can you tell me why my parents don't know this and why my teachers don't know this? Now, this is not any blame. I know that was very powerful. And this is not any blame, because we're just doing the best that we can with what we have in each moment. And so, of course, that sparked a light bulb. Okay, awesome. And then parents would come and pick up their kids, and they would say, when are you going to run a course for me? So that evolved. I do work with parents more consciously. I work with individuals. I work with adults. So I work with an array, and that's kind of speaking to my purpose. I work with anyone that is ready to recognize who their true selves are and live authentically, really. And yeah, and my vision was always to get it into schools. And that stemmed from the question of, why didn't I learn this as a child? Why wasn't it taught in schools? So last year I was in 2 different schools. And it was really beautiful the way that it was so done, because one of the schools were looking for me to come in and share these skills with a leadership team. So there were 17 kids that were already leaders, that already seemingly had great self-confidence and self-esteem. So I created a curriculum that would help them get even clearer on who they are. And that was incredible. And then the other school were looking for children that were experiencing anxiety and certain traumatic events that have happened in their lives. And some of it was around COVID, and some of it was around moving countries. Some of it was even around, you know, a child that had experienced the death of a parent. So it was all children that have experienced some sort of trauma, you know, within their lives. And that was amazing. And my goal is, and what evolved from that, and my goal is to also get it out into the, not just to the children, but I also have this vision of helping the teachers align with who they are so they can serve the kids best in that moment. Because teachers are, they're human beings, and they take their own stuff into their life, you know, into work, and learning how to center themselves and really show up to the kids, and also creating, you know, mini courses for the teachers, not even courses, but just talks for the, not for the teachers, for the parents of these kids, and how to use the curriculum at home. Because it's one thing to come in once a week for an hour and a half with me, hang out, get coached. It's another to consistently do the work at home, where the parents, where the siblings, where the children are all involved in it. So that's my vision.
Wow. That makes sense. So curious then, with COVID, I understand you do coaching online. Can you tell me a bit about what you've done with coaching online, and how that's affected your business as a coach, your purpose as a coach, etc.?
Yeah, so I was already very practiced in Zoom coaching even before COVID, because I've been doing international coaching, again, not just with children, but with adults, and my own coaching, that I have my coach. So I have my coach on Zoom. He's in another country. So I was already practiced in Zoom, but I had a bit of a wobbly unknown of how a workshop might look like. So I just kept doing them in person, which I still do and love. But when we went into COVID, we were in the middle of a workshop. So I think we were in week 3, and we had 3 more weeks to go. So that was a gift to kind of propel me into seeing what that would look like. And it was great. I mean, kids really just aligned with it. They got comfortable with it. So I still do that. And I also do one-on-one. And it's very, for me, it's easy. And because I think I bring a sense of ease into it, and the kids still feel easy, because, you know, energy is energy. We don't need to be next to each other to feel each other and experience each other.
So I'm curious about what your experience has been in your own family, especially since your kids are such varied ages and you've known about the curriculum for so long. Are you open to sharing a little bit about the impact on your own family?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I've got two lots. I've got, you know, when I started to do the work, I had a teenage lot and 2 very young ones, and now of course they're in their 20s, and then I've got 2 young ones. So the young ones, they love it. They loved it. My daughter, who's 9, every time I run a workshop, can I come to? And I do. I invite her in. She knows that mom's got her coaching cap, and she's been through the curriculum probably 3 or 4 times. She absolutely loves it. And really receives it. My second youngest, who's 13 now, he doesn't use the stories so much now. He's been in the workshops with me as well. You know, he's taken it on a little bit differently, but he does enjoy it. The stories, right? They get embedded in our memories. So I could see where he may not even recognize it anymore, but it's been embedded. He created those neural pathways about it, you know? And even just the fact that he learned about his brain and how it works at such an early age, so that when he's angry or frustrated, and we all get that, we're human beings, he recognizes that there's nothing wrong with him. that it's just something happening to his brain. And that creates more ease when we know that there's not something wrong with us. What I do have a niche in, and what I love about the course in Adventures in Wisdom in general, is that when we become a coach, the curriculum is all there. But as coaches, we are unique. If we're doing this work ourselves, we are unique. So I do a lot of, breath work and meditation, and I bring that into my courses, into my one-on-one. I do a lot of that, visualization, things like that. And, it works so beautifully hand in hand. So if I have to pick a niche, it would be more along the lines of where I bring my unique practices that I do, and it works so beautifully with Adventures in Wisdom. And being that Adventures in Wisdom, as long as you are, obviously abiding by the curriculum in a sense of, the integrity of all the content and everything like that, you can be your own unique coach and serve from that place. So that gives me the ability to be able to speak to each child, even in a group setting, uniquely and individually, because I can sense, where they're guided to. So sometimes we'll just pause and we'll take a deep breath. And so those are kind of what I love about Adventures in Wisdom, and is that my uniqueness is bringing in the practices that has served me, that has served my family, and being able to merge that.
That's beautiful. What about, do you have a favorite story that you like to teach your coach?
Do I have a favorite story? I'll share a couple of them. It's really hard to pick just one. I love letting go of mistakes. I love it. I think it's such a powerful way, and the way, and the way that we do it in the workshop and one-on-one is we actually have physical rocks and we energetically let go of them. So I love that story, the way that it's shared. I love Canville, Cantville, because it's so easy to just say, well, where are you living? Are you living in Canville or Cantville? That's a real easy one on self-confidence. I love self-esteem one, the ability to see two exactly the same characters looking the same, but feeling and thinking completely different, and, how they experience their world from that inner place. I find that one. Which, there's so many wonderful ones, but I'll stop with those. Yeah.
Okay, no, those are good. I love the Cantville as well. I think that's one of my favorite ones, because it's, like you said, it's just so clear. And when you were taking that moment of about to walk into the library, it's like, okay, well, where are you going to live, Inna? And we can all ask ourselves that question. That's one of the pieces of feedback I've heard so much from talking with coaches and parents as well, is that this work affects grown-ups. These stories affect grown-ups as well, because we all are affected by stories. Yes, stories are a great way for kids to learn because of their brain development, but it's also a great way for adults to learn as well. So I'm wondering, how has Adventures in Wisdom helped you from a business perspective?
I guess the word that comes for me is how is it? Well, I have a full curriculum. I don't have to reinvent a wheel. I have a curriculum that I feel completely aligned to, that I do the work on myself, that I share it with my children, and I don't need to make anything else up, right? I do bring in my own uniqueness into it, as I shared earlier, but it's right there. It's right there. And so, of course, it helped me in my business in that perspective. It's given me the confidence that I have the certification, that I can step in and say, I have an expertise in something. I studied something, and I'd like to share it with you. And because of that, my desire then is to share it. And if I'm sharing it, then that grows my business.
Have you used any of the business accelerator tools, like the message makers or the intake forms? I know there's a whole area of the business where we provide resources. I'm just wondering if you've personally used any of us?
Yeah, I mean, I've used the, all the, it's all set up so beautifully. Again, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. So there's the photo release form if you want to share what you do. It's all right there. You just put in your own, your own business name. I've shared the intake and outtake forms, which again, those can be edited as well, depending on, if you're working one-on-one, what you want to ask, but it's all right there. I've used the certificates for the children. They get excited when they have this completion form for themselves where they can, put it on. I've used the coaching that other coaches share that they do when it comes to activities. That in itself, I don't know if that's what you're asking about, but even just the Facebook Wisdom family with, I mean, there's over 100, I'm not sure exactly, but over 100 worldwide coaches that are doing this work, bringing their own uniqueness. And then they share what they're doing that's working. And we then, receive it. And there's so much support there to go into that even. I mean, it's been incredible. I have to admit, from the perspective, if I can just share this, of the community that the family is. I belong to two groups like that have truly impacted my life, where there is so much love and so much community in, and Adventures in Wisdom is one of them.
That's amazing. Yes, there are 150 active members of the Wisdom Coach family Facebook
That
group,
just
which is a
brings
private
chills.
Facebook group. Yes, and so that we've certified hundreds of coaches in 30 countries worldwide, which is unbelievable. 150 of them are active members of the Facebook community. And being new to Adventures in Wisdom myself, I absolutely love being in that space and seeing people ask questions of each other and sharing their ideas and their resources. And it's just
asking for support, and how many come in and share their expertise. I mean, it's incredible. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I'm excited about it as well.
Oh, good, good. What do you want other coaches who are considering being a wisdom coach to know about Adventures in Wisdom?
Oh, so many wonderful things. If you align with the curriculum, which I do very much, it's magical. It's gold, as I shared before. It touches in with all the different senses of the child, which connects to all the different brain parts of the child. So the child really gets the results. So it's a beautiful curriculum. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just bring in your own uniqueness. There is incredible support there in the community, in the curriculum, in terms of the Business Accelerator. It's a wonderful program. If that's something that you are feeling aligned to do and want to be a kids coach, I've never seen a better curriculum, a better community, a better environment.
So, Inna, I would love to hear some of the success stories that you've had, or some of the experiences that you've had sharing your coaching with kids, and of course, changing names where relevant. Could you share with us some of your stories?
Yeah, I'll share. I've got three that just pop up right away, but I've got many. I'll share the first story. This was last year in the school. This was a young, beautiful girl that when I first met her in the group environment, she would never speak. She just wouldn't speak. She could speak, but she was so shy. Shy is not the right word, but if somebody was just looking at her, they would say that she's shy. When you would coax her to speak, her voice was really, I don't know if you could hear me, but her voice was really low. You can almost not hear her. If I would ask a question, I remember the first week, she would go like this, like, don't ask me. And of course, that was her own self-esteem. And so I always meet children just where they are. I always say that there is no pressure to do anything or be anything here. If you receive one thing, take it on, and we'll just go from there. And it's really great because they take that on, because they can feel that in a group environment, they don't feel like they're being singled out, but yet that they can receive it uniquely. So by the end of the 6 weeks, this girl and that was one of her intentions, because mid-course, we did creating neural pathways. And it was around setting the intention of what you want to, what path do you want to build in your brain? And one of her intentions was, I want to speak confidently, loud, and clear. That was her intention. And by the end of the course, first and foremost, she had shared with me that she's speaking up a lot more in class. One of the vice principals of the school had shared with me that the teacher had shared with her that she's been speaking up more in class and asking questions. But what was very powerful is that when we had our last session and we were done and I was saying goodbye, she walked over to me and very clearly she said to me, she said, "Thank you for teaching me who I really am."
Oh, wow. That's amazing. I've got
And
chills.
she said it clearly. She said it with her voice. And that was beautiful. So that in itself was a very powerful experience. And I'll share one more. Like I said, there are many, but I'll share one more. And I'm looking at my phone here. I won't read the whole thing. And this has actually come from the, the curriculum, not the curriculum, but the feedback form. So again, it's all there for us to have. So I'm going to change the name to Samantha. Samantha is a child who feels the weight of the world on her shoulders. Her teacher contacted me towards the end of term 2 with big concerns about her behavior in class. She was having issues with friends and wouldn't participate in group activities. And she tried to exclude herself from group projects and often cried and hid in a corner in class. She said, Mom said, I knew that wasn't who she really was. And she was even starting to lie to me about certain things. So this was the end of term 2. And I had a workshop during the school holidays. It was a 3-day workshop. And then I received and then the mom shared this bit when she went right back to school. So it was term 3. And Mom shared, I caught up with the teacher 2 days into the school term. So it was literally a week after the course. And she said that she had already noticed a difference in her behavior in class, and she was putting up her hand again and answering questions. She's been happy and more balanced ever since. So there's evidence from the mom's experience of it.
That's
And
amazing.
this girl has been in more and more workshops because, right, we have 27 different skills. And even though each one stands on its own, they all impact each other. They all fuse together, and it just creates that way for us to be. So I've experienced children that have just come into one workshop, six skills, and that's been great. And then I've had children that's done all the workshops in about a year and a half. And I always say, it's like, if you want to be a good swimmer, you can't practice for one term or for 6 weeks and then decide you're a good swimmer. I mean, unless you have the niche for it or the talent for it. And even still, it's about practicing. So I've had kids that have gone through the whole curriculum, and some of them have done it twice. And that has been absolutely life-changing for them and their families, because then they share it. I always say to the parents, let your teachers teach you what they learned in the course, in the class.
And so I'm interested in the impact on families. So do you find that the families, because I know that there's like a one-pager for each of the skill books that you can send home. Do you find that parents do the whys and fives, or they do the parent worksheets, or what's the impact on families?
It's different for each family. Some parents are not as into it. They don't have the awareness around it. And so, they send their kids, the kids have a bit of a transformation, but the parents might be busy in their lives, and that's just where they are. There are parents that do the whys and fives, and they do look at the take-home sheets. And I also offer, and that's something that I offer, is within each workshop that I do, I have a 1.5 hour coaching call with the parents on Zoom. We pick a night where most people can make it, and I go through what their children are receiving in it. I talk about when to use the skills. I talk about when not to use the skills. So I teach the parents how to do it. And when I do that, I find that they get inspired, and then they start to do the work as well. And yes, when they start to do the work, it changes their lives. Whether they ask me to start coaching with them because they recognize that there's a shift that they need to heal within themselves, or they're just doing it with their children at home. But the moment they become aware and actually do some of the work, all of the work, a little bit of the work, whatever that looks like for them in their lives, there's definitely impact. They come back to me and say, I feel more calmer in my life. My relationship with my younger child, who's not even been in the workshop, has changed. Even my relationship with my partner has changed. So even my relationship with my work colleagues have changed. So if they are choosing to do the work as well, yes, it does impact. Absolutely.
So if you have any other stories that you want to share or testimonials you want to read, that would be helpful for you to have that on video, feel free.
Yeah, I have another one, and this actually was a very powerful gift to me because it really helped me to get clear on how powerful this work is and how much it's needed. And this happened in the beginning of my coaching. When I was probably not first, but I was probably about 6 to 8 months already into running workshops. And I had a parent reach out to me. And she said, I know we already started one of the workshops. We were week 1 and we were just going to start week 2. And she said, I really want my son to come in. I think he was 10 years old then, so he was still in primary school. She said, I really want my son to come in. Is it okay? And I said, it is okay. I'd be happy to have him in. I said, but I would love to do first a one-on-one and teach him the skill that I taught. So we did a one-on-one private session. And then he came into the course. But when we did that one-on-one, I actually asked the mom to participate because I wanted her to hear the story. It was around how our mind shapes our world and who's flying your plane. It was the first skill. And I started to just kind of dive in and ask him for stories of how he experiences life a little bit emotionally. And one of the challenges that mom found he was having is that he was getting very angry in his life. He had one younger brother and one older brother, and every time there was any kind of interaction between either of them, he would get really charged, heavy grungies, and get really, really angry and really lash out physically as well as verbally. And mom and I had asked him, I said, and how do you feel? What are your thoughts around when you're having this experience? And this little 10-year-old boy said, I don't want to be here. And that was really powerful because the mom didn't even know that that's what he was thinking. And I could feel there was a gasp, like, the fear of, oh my goodness, my child at 10 years old is thinking that. And I think part of why I'm sharing it is because so much of that is coming up for all of our children. I know here in New Zealand, it's a very big conversation that our youth are suffering with, that they just don't want to be here.
Yeah, especially
here. Yeah. And so he didn't, he said, I don't want to be here. And so we did I won't go deep into what we did. And he ended up coming into the workshop, and he ended up moving through the whole curriculum. Mom brought in the older brother into the whole curriculum, and then the younger brother came into the whole curriculum a few years later. So now this 10-year-old boy, he's now in high school. He's, whatever he is, I think 16 right now, right? Reaching closer to the senior years. And he is absolutely thriving. I still have connections with them. I see them on Facebook because I'm friends with mom. She shares some of the things. And, sometimes we messenger back and forth just to share. I'll just, and I'm blown away. And one time he had actually dropped his younger brother about a year ago into the workshop. And I said, stay, because he had to stay and wait for him. I said, stay. And he hung out with us. And I asked him, I said, what are your experiences, now in your life? He said, I still have challenges, he said, but I often come back and think about, what we did in the workshops, and it helps.
That's incredible. That must be so rewarding to know that you've had that kind of impact on an individual and the siblings and the family. What a gift. Do you have any other stories that you want to share?
I'll share another one that's coming. It's a very short and simple one, but it's, it was also impactful. And this was with another school that I worked with, and this was with a leadership team. So I created a curriculum, I think it was 7 weeks, where it was for children that already had a leadership role, that seemingly all had high self-esteem because they had to be voted in, so they all needed to give speeches. So these are children that most people look up to. And just in the first session that we had together, and again, it was around how our mind shapes our world. I love that particular skill as well. I bring in a lot of grungies in that. I bring in about how we feel when we are having grungies, and what that feels like in our bodies, and what our thoughts, and and then we go into the story and the conscious and the subconscious mind. And again, this boy who was really seemed very confident, often shared in the course. It was the first week. Some kids, didn't want to share, but he was, openly sharing. He came up to me at the end, and he said to me, he also shared that he gets angry a lot, and he doesn't know what to do with himself when he does. That was one of his biggest grungies that he finds he experiences. And just that skill and just that awareness, he came over to me at the end, and he said to me, thank you for letting me know that there's actually nothing wrong with me, that it's just an emotion that I'm experiencing and I can move through it.